most people are actually built to overvalue other people's opinions, that it's a human norm. Even someone as strong as me emotionally has those micro moments, and that's okay. And that, you know, you need to fight for it, just like you fight for losing weight or gaining muscle, just like you fight for it to get better at riding a BMX bike or shooting a basketball or being good at video games, or like everything in life requires some work. And I think that out of everything I can think of, fighting for a better mental perspective that finds balance, that isn't entitled, that isn't about dwelling, that isn't about complaining, that isn't about blaming, but that is also equally kind to oneself. You know, like, just because I often say everything's my fault, but that doesn't mean I feel like a piece of shit. That means I feel empowered to fix it. And so, you know, I think it's exercise of the emotional brain, not, you know, a lot of people are like, it's exercise of the brain. I actually think of that oftentimes as intellect. I think what I'm talking about is exercising emotional intelligence, exercising the brain that sits in your stomach, the one that dictates your anxiety or your confidence. So, you know, I think mindset is an interesting word that often translates in my brain into controlling one's perspective. Do you have control of your ability to be positive versus negative, optimistic versus cynical, hopeful versus dwelling? And so, you know, that matters a lot. And then once you get there, then it becomes about execution. And that's where I get excited. I get very excited philosophically, and then I get very excited practically. You know, I get excited about half the speech being about like, enough, fuck, like we can actually like do this. And then once you feel like you've got people there, it's like, okay, let me tell you how to do this. Here's what's happening in social media. Here's how you produce content. A lot of it has to do with the mental stuff. One of the biggest reasons people struggle at social media creation is they don't have peace of mind. They don't have self-awareness. They have levels of insecurity. They lack curiosity. They lack tenacity. There's a lot that goes into it. And so those are the themes I think about.
And I mean, two months ago, I had the fortune of interviewing another mindset specialist in David Goggins, and what he said really motivates him is doing what most people, you know, kind of making himself uncommon amongst the uncommon. What kind of motivates you? Like, you've built so much and you've achieved so much. What's that motivating drive behind all of that?
The curiosity and the deep belief that I'm required to squeeze out all the juice out of the orange. You know, I'm extremely aware that I am fortunate genetically, DNA-wise, parenting, the luck of the draw of parents, the luck of the draw of circumstance, you know, coming from humble beginnings. A lot of things went right. Timing. I kind of view it like this. I got a grapefruit worth of juice in a world where most people get tangerines. It's now up to me to squeeze that as much as I can. And what that really means, to make it more practical to everybody who's listening, I have a gift of communication. It is what it is. I don't think I'm special because of it. It's just I'm good at it. People resonate with the way I communicate. I have incredibly good intent. And I feel a level of responsibility to leave the world happier, especially now when everyone's getting really good at making people feel unhappy. I mean, think about how weird it is. I have this great ability to communicate and am deeply optimistic at a time where the world collectively is as pessimistic as it's been in a long time. That's a real opportunity and a responsibility, and I'm very motivated by that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and I mean, one of your podcasts recently said there are really two ways to to build something incredible, and that was either you have a deep insecurity that you use it to fuel yourself, or a deep level of confidence and use it to fuel yourself. Can you expand more on those two ways?
I'm glad you picked up on that. You agree? Actually, I'm going to reverse this a little bit. That hit you, right? Like, given the way you've navigated, what you're interested by, you can 100%. See that, can't you?
100%, 100%.
Yeah. It's same for me. Like, I was like, oh wait, because when you're a kid and you're still a young man, you're going through it. When I was a kid, like you don't even think about shit like this. You're just living. And then as I started to achieve and started, where it really hit me was when I started surrounding myself with fancy other people. And I remember very early on in the mid 2000s being like, I'm different. And not like I'm different better, I'm different worse. I'm just like, I'm different. I'm like, and very quickly I was like, wait a minute. A lot of these people that are winning, they have a different fuel. It's kind of like what is it like in America, like gas and then petroleum? What's the other thing that's like the other unleaded and like, what's the weird gas? Diesel. Like growing up in America, I don't know if this is the way it is in Australia or this is universal, but like in America, there'd always be this like weird other gas pump that was like diesel, and like you'd never see anyone, like I had one friend, big shout out to T. Adam Blum, his car was diesel. I thought it was, but like, and that's how I think about me. I'm like, man, all these people are driven by this insecurity, I think, and of course I have insecurities like anybody else, but I'm like, but predominantly I'm driven by love, not hate. Predominantly I'm driven by hope, not like scarcity. And I sensed it, and that's why I keep an eye on it. And pretty much I feel like the people that I see at the highest levels in the world of achievement are driven by one extreme or the other of confidence and insecurity. And I'm very grateful that mine is around love and confidence. And honestly, I say that as a complete and utter compliment to my parents. I don't think I did much in that. When I look at my companies, when I look at the people I touch, it feels a little bit better. But like, for me, when I talk about myself, that's just talking about what my parents did.
Wow. So with your parents, like, so you essentially built your dad's store for your dad. Like all your 20s, you just dedicate to that, right? Your whole 20s?
Yeah, I mean, when people are like, you were handed everything, I'm like, I built my fucking dad's business. When someone poses it the way you did, like I often remind people my dad came to America with nothing to his name and built a multi-million dollar, $4 million a year business. Like it's pretty fucking remarkable. On the flip side, yes, from 22 to 34, 6 to 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, I built my dad's business for him. Which is really rewarding. But like when you're 47, you get to look back like, I wish I took more vacations and weekends for myself. I wish I was able to communicate better to my dad and tell him like, hey, maybe I should get a little bit more of it. You learn from that. And so, but honestly, even though I say I wish, I'm kind of fibbing. I wouldn't change anything. It's one of the great accomplishments of my life to be able to, it's very rare for a child to be able to be a disproportionate impact on their parents' financial situation in a way that wasn't, you just gave it to them. I built alongside my dad. Yes, do I think I was the alpha in that? I do, because I know what happened there. But it wasn't like I won the lottery and bought my parents a house. Like we were in the trenches together, and my cousin Bobby, and my best friend Brandon. And my brother-in-law Justin, and Jeff DeRose, and so Mike Yanizelli. It's like fun for me to, I think back to that decade and a half, because it really started even before that. I talk about my career from 22 to 34. The truth is my career was really 16 to 34. From 16 to 22, I barely did school, emotionally and mentally. My brain, my heart, and my soul was in that liquor store.
And do you think it's possible to reach a high level of business success without immense sacrifice?
Of course it's a possibility if you decide to define business success at a certain level. I would argue that a business that's living and breathing, that is alive and growing, that makes the founder $800,000 a year is an outrageously successful business. The top 1% earners in America make $480,000 a year. You're a top 1% success, and at $800,000 a year take home from a small business, one does not have to sacrifice in the way that the question was posed, right? At that level, you don't have to work 19 hours a day. You can have 60-hour work weeks, 45-hour work weeks, achieve that level of financial success, and still have family time and still have your mental health. I mean, I don't think mental health has a number. I know people that are struggling with mental health that have businesses that do 40,000 a year, and I know people that do not have mental health issues and have good, content, happy, peace of mind that run $300 million a year businesses. So I don't think mental health has a direct attribute with size and scale. I think it goes back a little bit to self-esteem, self-awareness. I also think by show of hands, because I see most of you, how many of you in this class intuitively believe like doing business or being an entrepreneur is as fun to you as like playing sports or watching TV or skiing, or like it's like the most fun? Raise your hand. Right, so for me, that group is gonna struggle to burn out if their literal favorite thing on earth and their hobby and their fun is business building. Of course there's sacrifices, but I don't know if you know this, there's a lot of people in this classroom, Professor, I don't know if you know this, there's a lot of people you and I know who do not own businesses, who are employees, who sacrifice things too. Sacrifice is just a reality of life. But you get to decide what success is, right? Like, what's success? $1 million? $10 million? $100 million? $1 trillion? To me, why I love entrepreneurship, for me, success is being able to do what you want to do every day and living within the means of how much money you have. So if you don't have tons and tons and tons of money, well, then you can fly private everywhere, anytime you want. But having the freedom to create and do your fucking thing, well, that doesn't take that much money. I think this is a very complex question. I think a lot of kids and a lot of grown-ups are confused by this. I don't think you have to be unhappy, to win. I think you can build an empire on your terms and in your way. I also think people lack patience. I think people want money too fast. I think that hurts them. I think that's where people burn out or sacrifice because they're trying to win too fast to show everybody that they won.
Go ahead. You defining success, Gary, it's not just in financial terms. It's in freedom and lifestyle and all those other things. But if you want to be an entrepreneur, I remember one of your first things is you better have a stomach for it.
Listen, it's hard. It's lonely. It's
so hard.
I'm petrified of people thinking entrepreneurship is cool and just doing it because they think it's cool. It's fucking hard.
Well, I don't want to, we romanticize it because we bring in so many successful people, but anywhere there's a business, someone's A, made a really courageous decision, and B, is going through a lot of shit all the time.
For every person you've brought to this class, there's 20 million people who tried to do it and failed miserably. It's hard. I think the other thing is, how old are you, Professor?
Oh, come on. I'm 58.
I'm 47.
And the whole audience just was gasped. They said, it can't be.
So, brother, when you and I were growing up, you know this, and I want you to deliver this because I'm not in the room, and I think in the room it lands even more. When we were growing up, if you made $1 million a year, you were big time. Now, if you told the majority of the most ambitious kids in this room that they're only gonna make $1 million a year max in their career, they would think they fucked up.
Oh my God.
And so I think success got reframed into crazy numbers. You had movies coming out saying, Justin Timberlake's I mean, making a movie 15 years ago that's like, what's better than $1 million, $1 billion? It all got weird. And the separation of wealth and society has gotten weird and too extreme. And so I think people are confused out there.
We got a question sort of related to that, Ryan.
Hi, Gary. So just relating to the concept of failing fast and learning from your past mistakes, how can individuals reframe their perception of failure and use as a tool for growth and progress?
Brother, I think this is where the true entrepreneurship versus manifested or over-created entrepreneurship is something I think a lot about. A lot of you were of the generation where failure started to get demonized. Right back to me and Professor being older, there was no such thing as any trophy for anybody besides the people that won Little League. And so we created a culture in the last 30, 40 years where we tried to overprotect people from failure. When I hear that question from you, I get scared because when I think about the school system, society for the last 30, 40 years, we didn't do a lot of favors for people to get comfortable with losing. We demonized it. By overprotecting people from it, we made them think it was bad, right? So, the answer to the question is you start practice losing, right? Here's a good one. There's a lot of people in this class that think other people in this class are cute. They should go out and roll up on them and ask them out. And when they say no, that's good. Humans, not Gen Z, not emerging Gen Alpha, not boomers, humans need to practice losing a lot more. So the answer to your question is it's easy. Go do shit. You'll lose. The question is interesting to me because it's the reality of the game, but many people in this classroom haven't even started playing the game. It's really hard to read about push-ups and get the results. You've got to do the things. And so losing, I micro lose every day, but I don't lose at a level of putting myself out of business. But all that entrepreneurship is micro losing with the occasional macro win. It's really, really the opposite of school. It really is. I think one of the biggest reasons so many people fail in whatever, endeavor they're on is a lack of self-awareness, because we as human beings have insecurities and we posture and we position. And there was a business deal I worked on today that is not going to happen because the gentleman values his title from his old company, which is a really tiny failing company. But the clout of that title is going to make him hold on and sink with that ship versus the other opportunities he has where he would have actually learned how to become that title. And I'm empathetic to it. I'm not even mad. This is no judgment. This is human behavior. A lot of us in this room, I've gone through, there's just things that I wish I was the quarterback of the New York Jets. But with sports, it shows you very quickly if you are or you aren't. With entrepreneurship and other things in life, you just get the title and you say you are, and a lot of other people believe you, or you believe you're tricking other people. So, yeah, I think if you don't know yourself, you've got really no shot because it's too hard, right? It's too hard. And really, I think what's even more interesting for me personally about it is people are posturing. They just genuinely want people to think of them in a certain way, and people are going into things for quote unquote the wrong reasons because they're looking for a short-term fix to something that's bothering them. And so, going even more tactical, when you might be back to entrepreneurship, you might be a good entrepreneur, but if you don't realize that you're not a good operator and then you hire a COO, or if you don't realize that you're good at sales, but that may not mean you're a good entrepreneur, or that you're a good entrepreneur, but you hate selling and you have to get a partner or a capable teammate that can sell their ass off. These are just cliche things that, kids, one day you're gonna have the gray hairs. And one of the things that is good about it is you've seen shit. right? You've lived it. Right now you're reading it, you know? And so when you live it, it becomes even more real. And, you know, I appreciate the first question because I think it's monstrous. Lack of self-awareness destroys people, destroys them. Something that I'm very passionate about is hustle. You know, it's a word 20 years ago that was very important and very popular. In the last 10 years, not as much, because now people are more thoughtful about burnout and things of that nature. And I think that's wonderful. A lot of people try to position me as someone who just wants to work, work, work. And what they miss is, for me, my work is my happiness. It's my hobby. But no level of financial success is worth your health. Yes, hard work matters. Nobody achieves anything special without hard work. You can't hope to be successful. It's like working out. You're not gonna lose weight unless you exercise and eat properly, period. Same with work. You can't just get there. It does require a lot of work. However, it's a very, very important time in the world right now because we're very fortunate. Right now, the world is spending a lot of time demonizing social media, which I understand. I understand why the world's doing that, but there's always the other side. And the other side is people are learning things that we would have never learned without it. We're the first generation that hears a million different voices, not 3. The media in the 1970s in Japan, in America, in Russia, in China, in Australia, you heard 2 or 3 voices, and that was it. So what a million voices means is, yes, there's a lot of bad things you're gonna hear, but you're gonna hear a lot of great things you would have not heard otherwise. And that's up to you. To the point of NFTs and Web3, even in this short 2-year window, we've seen extreme highs and extreme lows. You know, I secretly, this would be wrong, and I want to be very careful when I say this. It's not that I enjoy these last couple of months more than a year ago. A year ago, I'm universally praised. The last 100 days, far less. I don't enjoy that. First of all, I definitely don't enjoy if someone's upset or hurting or things of that nature. But to me, there's something intriguing about building something meaningful. When you build something meaningful, how many people here are parents and have children? Raise your hand. Raise your hand if you have children. Can you ask that gentleman? So for all of you that raised your hand, and please repeat this, you know with children, there's ups and there's downs. Because it's the most meaningful thing. Same with building VeeFriends for me. I'm not building VeeFriends for yesterday, what the floor price was a year ago, what the floor price is today. I'm building it forever. And so I'm okay with the ebbs and flows. You know, when you're building something meaningful, people are judging it every day, but that's like judging a meal before it's been cooked. And so I'm enjoying the process of building during this more challenging time, because during this challenging time, a lot of the people that don't have the stomach for it are gonna leave. And that's more opportunity for the people that have the stomach. God willing, I live a long life. I'm 47. I'd like to be here for at least another 47, hopefully a little bit more. But you know, I'll probably take 47, but I prefer 57 more years. You know, for me, when I started VeeFriends, I said, I'm gonna build something that's like, I would talk about Disney from an ambition standpoint, but the way I saw the universe play out was Pokemon meets Sesame Street. I know that these characters can make the world a better place. I know that I, as one person, over the last 10 years making content, have brought a lot of value to a lot of people. I think the most important thing to teach is the elimination of fear. I think fear is the biggest poison to children. I think parents use fear on children to make them do what they want. And so I do think critical thinking is incredibly important, but I think if you were able to build self-esteem, confidence, and if you're able to have your child not be scared to fail, then you will have a very happy child. You can have all the skills in the world, but if you're scared, you're finished. So for me, the meaning of life is very, very simple. It comes in two places: to be selfish and to be selfless. Selfishly, I want to be happy every day. I want to do what I want to do. I want to. Every morning when I wake up, I want to do what I want to do. And then selflessly, for me personally, I realize that the way I communicate resonates with many, 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 many people. And I find that most people that communicate in a way that many people listen to, communicate for their needs. And it's very important for me to use my voice to communicate, to bring value to others. Here's what I would say. Entrepreneurship, true entrepreneurship, you're gonna learn by doing it more than reading about it. You can watch all my videos, you can go to university. Entrepreneurship is like exercise. You have to do it to actually get it. On the flip side, a lot of people think that when I make videos, America has a very, very, very different university system than most places in the world. In America, the university system is very, very, very negative for the person because most Americans, go into debt when they go to university. Unlike most of the rest of the world where university is very low cost or provided for you, in America, it's a business. It's very expensive and because every parent pushes their kids to go to university, a lot of parents can't afford to pay for university, so the child goes to university and they don't want to, and they collect very big debt. Not $5,000, $80,000, $100,000 with very high interest. So when I make videos and say, for a lot of you, you don't have to go to university, it's a very American reality, first of all, but it is a global thing. Here's what I would say. I was the worst student. I was the most self-aware that I was an entrepreneur, but I went to university because I love my parents and they wanted me to. I treated it as a vacation. It was a 4-year vacation. And I knew that the day I left, I was gonna work very hard. And it was true. For 4 years at university, I did not work hard at all. I played video games, I hung out with my friends, I played basketball, I played spades and dice, and I had a great time. And my parents were happy. So you could go to university and make your mom happy, because even when you leave university, you're gonna be a very young man. The other thing is, you're also gonna meet people at university that might be interesting, partners, things of that. There is no right answer. Everybody here has a different thing. But it is okay to do things to make your parents happy. It is okay. But you don't necessarily need it to be a successful creative or entrepreneur. On the flip side, a lot of people are not successful entrepreneurs or creatives when they decide to be. In some countries, like the US, every day, more and more companies do not require a university degree. Japan is still grounded in a lot of tradition, and I think it is more required. For example, in VaynerMedia, in my company, I have no idea. First of all, we don't require a college degree anymore, and that's becoming more and more common. So I think the whole world will go there, but to answer your question, it's a very individual answer. If you're an entrepreneur and you're a creative, it's not like being a doctor or a lawyer where you really need university. But I think a lot of kids now demonize university because a lot of entrepreneurs speak about it, but it might be a wonderful thing for you, and you're still gonna be plenty young to be able to do your things. You just have to make a personal decision. And by the way, you're only 15 now. You may change your mind 3 times, 6 times, 10 times before you have to make that decision, and that's okay too. The world today runs on social media. The world runs on social media. It just does. Meaning, it is crazy. For whatever you want to happen, as long as you're able to produce content on the 4 to 5 platforms that matter in this country or the world, you have a chance. That's crazy. You know, for all of us in this room that are over 40 years old, you know, that was not how we grew up. You didn't have a chance. Somebody had to discover you. Now you're discovering yourself. You're putting yourself out there. The biggest hurdle in the world is too many people in this room value what other people think about their content. And one of my favorite things about this culture is that respect is put on such a pedestal, like enormous. And I believe that that is actually even more important today than it was 20 years ago, because a lot of the rest of the world continues to lose its place with being respectful. However, there is a way to be respectful and still enjoy your life and be creative. And I think that is the biggest challenge. I think that this, and this is generalizing, the culture has not figured out how to stay respectful, but be able to be an individual or be creative or be disruptive. And that is a challenge that needs to be figured out. I am not overtly in love with social media, on the record. I'm in love with consumer attention. It just happens to be on social media right now. Obviously, I'm sure this is not news for anyone. Being who I am and what I do and living in the United States, I am bombarded over the last month of like, what do you think about if TikTok gets banned? What's gonna happen if TikTok gets banned? My answer to that is like, that's above my pay grade. I have no idea what, you know, China and Russia and America are doing with themselves. But if it gets banned, all that attention just goes somewhere else. And so like, to me, we're not out of business if TikTok, we're not out of business if every social media disappears. Attention goes somewhere. It was on the radio back in the day, then it went to television, now it's on the internet. The current state of the internet is social media. The metaverse may happen one day. If this company has it its way, then plenty of people will be living in, you know, Horizon and Oculus. You know, I think that's an inevitable outcome. I think the question really is timing. Is that 3 years from now? Is that 13 years from now? But this is all about attention. And what creators understand is the attention sits on these platforms. And to remind everybody, the attention is free. The attention is free, and it's more free than ever now because you and your competitors and the other platforms now reward quality creative to get more organic reach, because your job and your competitor's job is to keep people on your platform, so it's better to give people what they actually want versus the alternative. So it's becoming more important. Meanwhile, the ad products continue to be grossly underpriced, because unlike the rest of the ad world that creates artificial floors of cost, television, print, radio, websites, digital, most of you and your competitors' ad product is based on supply and demand. So for example, not because I love you so much at Meta, but because I love being right, I've been yelling for 7 weeks, 10 weeks, 14 weeks about Facebook Reels being grossly underpriced, because they are. Because they're incredibly underpriced, because there's a stunning amount of attention on Facebook Reels, but a misunderstanding of it from the creator and the brand ecosystem of how much attention's there. Thus, there's not enough content being put on it against the demand. Thus, everyone who's doing it gets more awareness. Over time, that will be figured out. It will neutralize, and then you see what always happens in every platform. The organic reach is only a function of supply and demand. Now it's a bigger function of the quality of the content, which is a huge opportunity for all of us. And then the ad products on top of it are incredibly underpriced. And in the post-iOS 14.5 world, with tagging and cookieing. Now the creative becomes even a bigger variable because the best practice now is win on creative, see that there's an indicator that there's interest, and then post-produce that asset into a performance ad and run media against it. So the playbooks will continue to change and ebb and flow, but creators understand it. What do I think about the organic and media on you and the competitive landscape? I think the far majority of it is underpriced. The problem is the creative industry that we live in doesn't know how to make creative at an appropriate price. The ad world is broken. Creative's too expensive. And so brands that are Fortune 500 brands can't take advantage of the social platforms because of creative AOR doesn't know how to make volume creative at a cost that's efficient against the distribution that's in front of us. And that's the elephant in the room. So here's how I see the world. A brand has a brand positioning. We have to respect that. Work has been done. You have to have some sort of point of view, respect. Next, and most importantly, and the biggest issue I have with advertising, the next thing in our framework is what's the business objective? I mean, I've said plenty very direct things here. I'm gonna say another one. Most agencies don't actually care about trying to make, especially on the creative side. They wanna do the creative idea they have. They don't care about driving the business. So the framework for me doing social brand building and building businesses is what's the brand stand for? What's the business objective? The next thing we do is we create 40 to 50 consumer segmentations, not 3, right? 40 to 50 consumer segmentations. 18 to 22-year-old males living in Bangladesh that are into esports. 21 to 27-year-old females in Tokyo making $200,000 a year. 40 to 45-year-old moms in Malaysia who have an affinity towards high fashion. Real specific consumer cohorts with real teeth, okay? Next on that is called PAC, platforms and culture. Like, do you actually understand what the platforms are doing? Next, which platforms are you creating for? You've now gone the whole way down. Now we're gonna pick Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And for me, every brand that's in this room should be on all of them. But this is back to allocation, where do their dollars go? So they can't, but they should, but they'd rather spend $8 million on a TV spot. So you lay out the platforms. Then you go to work. So now you created a framework. Now your creative and strategy team are ready to work. Now you start posting against the framework, right? You know what consumer you're going after. You know what you're trying to achieve in business. You know how the platforms work. So you know Facebook Reels is underpriced right now. You know that green screen headline creative is over-indexing on TikTok. You know. So you start making. Now the work really begins after you make. You have a person in your strategy team called a PCS, a post-creative strategist. Her and his job is to look at all the qualitative feedback. You have your analytics and media team look at the quant feedback, and you start making your machine smart, like a half-pregnant AI. The team gets smart through the work. You start looking at the proxies. When you've got a retail brand that sells in retail stores, you're running the media against holdout clusters to prove that you're actually driving incremental growth. If you have a DTC brand or an app, it's a piece of cake. You're just looking at the black and white data. When the creative goes viral or over-indexes its norm, it becomes the brief for more efficient and effective work. So now the virality based on the consumer sentiment and intent and truth becomes a proxy to your brief, not a strategist sitting in an office, going on Reddit for 4 hours, writing a brief. Then you do that forever and ever and ever. Your cohorts are an accordion. As you start getting affirmation that something's not working, you actually eliminate Malaysian moms 40, 45 because you aren't finding affinity. Your creative team hasn't hit the mark. On the flip side, while marketing to Indonesia gamers 13 to 15, you realize it's actually the female gamers 13 to 15 that are even more interested in the intent, and you create a new cohort to go there to double down on the truth of the consumer, not the audacity of the boardroom. That's how I do it.
Was there a second question? Or did you both just have your hand? Oh, I knew that was in the same space. Go for it. Oh.
As I've been on that little rant just for the room, think about how fundamentally different that is than 99% of the execution of social media marketing in our industry. That's how big the opportunity is. The energy of this talk is not pointing fingers or anxiety, it's opportunity. The reason the world sits in this bizarro landscape where big brands would rather M&A small brands into their organizations than do the work that the small brands are doing is completely predicated on the disconnect between the agency and brand ecosystem, and it doesn't have to be that way. It just doesn't have to be that way. And I think the industry needs to step up. The ad industry needs to step up. We need to provide more value to our clients. You know, I'm aware that there's only 5 or 6 holding companies and it's in essence a monopoly within each other. I get that, but it's not sustainable, or it's going to be a problem in a 10, 15, 20-year window. And I understand that the executives that run those companies don't care. They're gonna be retired by then. So that's fine, but there's a reason companies go out of business. And this is what it looks like. You can't spend $7 million a year in creative fees to get one video a year for television and then get matching luggage for social in 2023. Makes no fucking sense. This is very important. I don't think people are bad. I don't even think people are ill-intended. I just think I think the advertising industry has to look itself in the face and say, do we have our clients' best interest in mind, or do we have our best interest in mind? Programmatic black boxes that are just sitting with tons of margin for our media agency is not in the best interest of our clients. Buying bad inventory on .coms, running media that doesn't understand the creative that's being run on it, and having those two separated, these are not real smart things to do in 2023. And honestly, I've talked a lot about the platforms and I've talked a lot about the agency, but at the end of the day, the person's fault in this entire ecosystem is the brands. They're the ones that write the check. And so that to me is the most fascinating part. Like, you know, you get what you pay for. And you know, to me, I think the things that bring me passion and interest and drive me and make me want to do this morning is to create a dialogue that's missing. I did this in the wine business. Wine was overpriced when I got into it. Premium wine in America was overpriced. And it didn't need to be that way, and people didn't like the conversation, but it ended up being true. And it helped the consumer. I really struggle with the advertising industry. I don't think the brands are in a good spot. I think they're losing market share, and I think they're gonna continue to lose market share unless they adjust to the title of this, which is social media is just a slang term for the current state of where the attention of consumers are. And we need to understand how to be good at it. And I think everyone in this room knows the far majority of big businesses are not good at it. They're just not.